Dear students, welcome to the online classes of endocrinology. Today I will explain about parathyroid gland. That gland is also called calcium regulating gland. First, the anatomy of parathyroid gland. Actually, parathyroid glands are small glands of endocrine system which are located in the neck, just behind the thyroid gland. So this is the portion of neck, and this is the thyroid gland. And if you will see the back of this thyroid gland, this is the portion of back of the thyroid gland. Here you can see four small parathyroid gland which are uh, tiny and yellowish in color. So the weight of each gland is around 30 to 50 milligram, and women has usually larger than men, and these glands are bit larger in size in women. So if you will talk about the histology, so actually these parathyroid glands are made up of two main cells, that is chief cells and oxyphil cells. The chief cells are the tiny cells which are more in number, and they produce basically the parathormone or PTH hormone. On the other hand, oxyphil cells, which are larger in size, they are less in number, but they can also secrete parathormone or PTS during pathological condition called parathyroid adenoma. So if we will discuss about the PTH or parathormone hormone, it is a proteinous hormone or peptide hormone having 84 amino acids. Its molecular weight is 9500 Dalton or 9.5 kilodalton. And the major function of this PTH or parathormone is the maintenance of blood calcium level in the body. Now the synthesis and secretion of the parathormone. So as you know, the parathormone or PTH is synthesized in the chief cell of the parathyroid gland, and after the synthesis or translation, it becomes pre-pro parathyroid hormone that contain 115 amino acid. This is pre-pro PTH. Then it enters into the endoplasmic reticulum, and its uh, N-terminal sequence is spliced out, and it becomes the pro PTH, and pro PTH contain 90 amino acid residues, and finally it comes into the secretory vesicles and stored here, and it converted into activated PTH, that is 84 amino acid containing hormone. And so these uh, hormone molecules or these PTS can be stored in the secretory vesicles. Here on the right hand side you can see the secretory vesicles, and the PTH hormones are stored inside this secretory vesicles. And once our body needs the PTH, they can be released from the oxophilic cells. Now the mechanism of secretion of parathormone. So here you can see how the parathormone or PTH is secreted out from the chief cells. So actually chief cell contain a receptor that is called calcium ion surface or calcium ion sensing receptor. This is a surface receptor of it is a kind of G protein coupled receptor. So it works on the availability or unavailability of the calcium ion in the body. So uh, here you can see the structure of CASR, that is calcium ion sensing receptor. So now the activation and inhibition of PTH release. So PTH release is activated when there is a decreased extracellular calcium concentration. So in this case, the calcium sensing receptor gets signal that the calcium is very less in the extracellular compartment. So it uh, alter the phosphatidyl inositol turnover and intracellular calcium, and ultimately affecting an increase in parathyroid hormone secretion. So parathyroid hormone secreted once when there is decrease in calcium ion level in the blood. On the other hand, the PTH inhibition uh, occur when the calcium ion increased in the extracellular compartments. Here I have shown the mechanism of action of inhibition of PTH. So here you can see the chief cell, and when the concentration of calcium ion increased, the calcium ion can bind to the CASR, that is calcium ion sensing receptor here. So once the calcium ion bind to CASR, this get activated. This is G protein coupled receptor. It is activated, and it can activate various kinases, and finally it inhibit the uh, synthesis of PTH, and finally it also inhibit the release of PTH from the secretory granules of the chief cell. So here you can see how the PTH release works. It completely depends on the calcium ion concentration in the blood. Now the mechanism of action of PTH. Here I have shown how this PTH works in various organs. So first, here you can see when the calcium ion decreased in the blood, the calcium sensing receptor get activated, or it can get signal that calcium ion are decreased. So the parathyroid cell or chief cells start secretion of the parathormone or parathyroid hormone. So this PTH or parathyroid hormones goes to the target cell now. So PTH have basically three target organs like kidney, bone, and our GIT, gastrointestinal tract or intestinal region. So the receptor for this PTH are found on the basically on kidney and bone marrow. So once this PTH is binds to its receptor, so PTH is peptide hormone, so its receptor is G protein coupled receptor. Once this G protein coupled receptor get activated, it can activate the release of calcium ion from the bone. So once the PTH comes into the bone, it can activate the release of calcium ion from the bone into the blood. On the other hand, it can increase the kidney's ability to retain calcium ion so that it can prevent the release of calcium ion through the urine. And on the other hand, it also increase the GIT or gastrointestinal tract ability to absorb calcium ion from the blood. So in this way, the parathormone or PTH can retain or balance the calcium ion in the body. So now the action of PTH on bone. Actually, PTH promotes both bone reabsorption and bone synthesis. So it helpful in the calcium ion absorption and bone synthesis. If we will talk about the action of PTH on kidney, so PTH promotes the reabsorption of calcium ion, and it inhibits the reabsorption of phosphate ions. And third, the most important step in the kidney is it stimulates the last step of synthesis of vitamin D. So PTH induce the synthesis of calcitriol. The calcitriol is the most active form of the vitamin D. And when the calcitriol concentration enhanced, then the intestine increase the absorption of calcium ion and phosphate ion. So thus the PTH is very helpful in the maintenance of calcium and phosphate ion in the body and synthesis of vitamin D. Now, what is vitamin D? Actually, vitamin D exists in two forms. Vitamin D3, that is cholecalciferol, and vitamin D is ergosterol. This cholecalciferol or vitamin D is provitamin, which is actually synthesized in our skin with the help of sunlight, or we can take it from the diet also. However, provitamin D2, it can be obtained only from the diet. Like you can see here the various vitamin D rich food like milk, egg, fish and cheese. So once we take the provitamins through sunlight or through the diet, it comes into the blood circulatory system, and in the circulatory system, vitamin D3 or vitamin D has a vitamin D binding protein. So it binds with this protein and it comes into the liver. In the liver, the hydroxylation of vitamin D3 takes place and it converted into calcidiol. However, the hydroxylation of vitamin D2 takes place in kidney and finally calcidiol converted into calcitriol, and this calcitriol is the most active form of the vitamin D, and this calcitriol can work in our immune system. It increase the calcium ion absorption and it also helps in the differentiation of various cells. On the other hand, it also helpful in the angiogenesis or the blood vessel synthesis. So that's all about the vitamin D. Now the role of parathyroid and calcitonin in the calcium homeostasis. So in last lecture, I have discussed about the role of calcitonin in the maintenance of calcium ion in the blood. Now I will discuss about the role of PTH or parathyroid in the calcium homeostasis. So here you can see when the blood calcium level falls, the chief cells of parathyroid gland secrete the PTH or parathyroid hormone. So as I already discussed, the parathyroid can act on the bones. So it induces the bones to release calcium ion into the blood. On the other hand, it enhances the reabsorption of calcium in the kidney and it also stimulates the production of calcitriol at the kidney and finally enhance the calcium ion and phosphate ion absorption by the our digestive tract. So in this way, it can retain the calcium ion concentration in our body and thus blood calcium level increases and the normal calcium level retained on the blood. That is called calcium homeostasis. So here you can see how calcitonin as well as PTH maintain the blood calcium level. Now the disorders of parathyroid. So there are two types of disorder related to parathyroid. The first one is hyperparathyroidism and second is hypoparathyroidism. If we will talk about the hyperparathyroidism, it is a condition of hypersecretion of PTH. And there are basically three types of hyperparathyroidism. That is primary hyperparathyroidism. It is due to the development of tumor in one or more parathyroid gland. Second is secondary hyperthyroidism. It is due to the physiological compensatory hypertrophy of the parathyroid gland. And tertiary hyperthyroidism is due to the hyperplasia or abnormal increase in the number of chief cells of the parathyroid gland. It is developed due to the chronic secondary hyperthyroidism. And the hyperparathyroidism actually induce the hypercalcemia, and the most common cause of hypercalcemia is the primary hyperthyroidism, and the problem is usually a tumor of adenoma of the parathyroid gland. And actually the parathyroid gland enlarge and the additional cells produce extra parathyroid hormone causing an elevated calcium level in the blood, and once the PTH increases, it stimulates the release of calcium from the bones, and bone become very porous due to the deficiency of calcium. So here you can see the normal bone and here the porous bone, that is a condition of osteoporosis. And the extra calcium which is released from the bone can enter into the kidney and it can produce kidney stone as well. So here you can see some symptoms of hypercalcemia, that is related to bone problem, muscle problem, gastrointestinal tract problem, kidney problem, nervous system problem, and hypertension. Now, hypoparathyroidism. Hypoparathyroidism means the condition of decreased level of PTH, and it can finally lead to hypocalcemia, or it means the decreased level of calcium in the blood. It is due to the uh, hypoparathyroidism, renal failure, low level of albumin or vitamin D deficiency or malabsorption. So there are some symptoms of hypocalcemia. There are brittle nails, hair loss, dry skin, anxiety, headache, etc. So again, the osteoporosis is a condition of hypocalcemia or decreased level of calcium ion in the bone. It is due to the hyper parathyroidism. And once the calcium ion released from the bone become porous, and it's the condition of osteoporosis, and it is more common in women over 60 years. And in this case, bone become very fragile. The other deformity associated with hypoparathyroidism is rickets, that is the deficiency disease. And as the level of PTS decreases, the calcitriol synthesis inhibited, thus the vitamin D synthesis inhibited. So it is called vitamin D deficiency. So it can uh, decrease the strength of bones, particularly in children. So here you can see various forms of the rickets in the children. So that's all about the parathyroid gland and their hormones, particularly the parathyroid hormone, that is PTH. So if you have any query regarding PTH, you can ask me my WhatsApp number. And thanks for watching this lecture. Uh, next time I will start a new topic. Till then, please stay at home, stay safe. Thank you.